This is Straight Up Talk with Sharon and Peter. We are both proud Brits and Canadians. This is a no-nonsense weekly podcast about people, life, leadership, and all sorts of stuff. We don't always agree. I'm Sharon Jones, business owner of Be a Better You, developing better managers and leaders, and this is Over to You.
Hi, I'm Pete Johnson, owner of Moveman Traders. Buy and sell anything.
This is true, you do, and you are my husband, so that is great because that's where I get my stuff from. Topic for this week in Straight Up Talk is all about values. This was something we were going to talk about, plus somebody actually made a comment on our pilot episode and said you should talk about values, so here we are. I like to define what I mean when I say values. Personal values, specifically, they're the internal standards that guide how we think, how we act, and how we make our decisions, especially when no one's watching. To put it simply, our personal values are the invisible rules that you live by, whether you realise it or not. Most people don't choose their values, they inherit them, they absorb them, and then spend years unknowingly living by them. So, Peter, question for you. We've talked a lot in the past about not connecting with people because you don't have anything in common with them. Do you think that that has got anything to do with values?
Absolutely. Everything to do with their values and my values.
Okay.
And most of the time it's behaviour and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable.
Can you give me an example?
Going out for a beer with somebody and you're on the train and they put their feet up on the seat. Definitely, that's a big no-no for me. Hate it. I used to go racing with a guy and we'd get the train from London down to Plumpton or Lingfield, Fontwell Park, one of the racetracks. And every time, without fail, feet up on seat.
Okay, so
people would walk past and try and get another carriage and avoid us.
So what's interesting about that, I already hear ding ding, there's a value in there. When I do values exercises with people, and if anyone's interested in doing it, they can send me a message and I'll put a link also on my website for it. I get them to think about their experiences, their life, and then ultimately is to distill their values. People tend to have about 10 core values that don't change over time unless you're what might be a value when you're 18 might have shifted a little bit, but it might be different. I'll give you an example of that, and then I'm going to come back to your value. So if we can distill values down into one word, one person might have a value of freedom, and what that means to them when they're 18 can be very different when it means to them when they're 40, when they've got kids, etc., but they've still got this core value of freedom. So based on what you've just told me about the guy putting the feet on the seat, what value in one word is that hitting for you, do you think?
Well, lack of respect.
So it's respect.
Respect, yeah.
So one of your values is about respect.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you give me any other examples of things that to you would hit on that value of respect?
Well, the same person actually used to talk loudly on their phone in public as well. Because we all of us that used to go racing, we're all self-employed, so we all had business calls to take whilst we were out a day's racing. But I would normally say, I'd take a call and say, look, I'm out racing today, I'll give you a call back tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock or something. But this one guy, he used to just talk loudly on the phone in the carriage, and it used to upset a few people. So
how does that respect for whom?
Well, the other people that are using the train.
So you think it's from
me as well,
right? So you think it's rude?
I think it's rude, yeah.
So people who are not paying attention to what's going on or who's around them.
Yeah.
Using the seats, putting their feet up on them.
Yeah.
Did you ever say anything to him?
Oh yeah, all the time.
And how did he react?
He was pretty much of the opinion that everybody does it, so why shouldn't he? And I said, well, not everybody. You know, I never used to, I would never put my feet up on the seat, and I would never talk loudly on the phone. I would always take the call and say, look, yeah, I'll call you back. I'm busy right now. Yeah.
Okay, so that's one of your values, and I know you haven't done this values exercise specifically because I've talked about it, which is actually kind of interesting, but the process is helping you think about what that means to you. Is there any other values that you can think of, things that rub you up the wrong way?
Hundreds and hundreds, I suppose. Yeah, people being rude to the servers in restaurants. Just like, there's tons of stuff. As you get older, the pile gets bigger and bigger.
Interesting you say that, though. Having been a waitress myself back in the day, which is, of course, how we met a long, long time ago, when I was working as a waitress, not in a cocktail bar.
In a Butlins camp.
At a Butlins camp. It was I would have a row of tables, 9 tables, 4 people on each table. And you want to be friendly to everybody because ultimately you want a tip at the end of the week.
Get tips at the end of the week, yeah.
But you get to know very quickly who is the person at each table who's going to be nice to everybody else on the table but rude to the wait staff. That, in my view, is not a nice person. And I've got a value that I call it equivalency. And that means it's about treating people with respect. So it kind of touches on your value, a little bit of respect, but equivalency. So nobody's better than anybody else. It all depends on how you're showing up. So I will always give people the benefit of the doubt, but then it's how they respond to that is how I will react to them. So those people who are rude to the wait staff, they're not, in my view, they're not nice people. And people who do that should know that you shouldn't do that to the wait staff, because the wait staff can get their
own back.
Get their own back.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. It was hot in those kitchens, wasn't it, in the summertime?
Oh, yeah.
And we used to carry out racks and on the racks would have plates.
Yeah.
And in the plates would have the food, of course. So sometimes, this is horrible for me to admit this, but sometimes I might have sweat running down my armpit into that top plate. And I always make sure the person...
That's why I never come to your cuff.
I always make sure that isn't that terrible to admit. At least he got a bit of salt with his food as well. But
yeah.
So yeah, that's another one, a respect value. People being rude to each other. I think once you go through the exercise of knowing what your values are, it can help you understand who you want to spend your time with and why certain situations challenge you. Did you?
No, you carry on.
Okay, because my values are, and I've done this activity, of course, authentic, curious, fun, healthy, transparent, equivalency, honesty, maverick, courageous, and autonomy. I can give you examples for each one of those. When I say to people, what are your values? And they might say, health is one of my values. So I say, well, how does that show up for you? And if they can't actually demonstrate, then it's not a value, it's a wish. So if they say, well, yeah, no, I'm healthy because I'm going to start the gym next year. I like cake. I eat a lot. That isn't a health in virtue at all. That's just something, it's a wish. So it's all about knowing what is your value and what does that mean to you. And it's my values help me understand why I like to work for myself.
Right, yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Versus autonomy is huge for me. Don't like being told what to do. I rail against authority.
Right, yeah. Is it the we've talked about in the past, when you said about somebody you knew that was kept on and on about, I want to learn to play guitar. And you said, well, how are you getting on with your guitar? Are you having lessons? And he said, I haven't even got a guitar yet.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, that's one of those horrible icebreakers. I hate doing them in training. Most people hate them, but some of my clients insist that we do an icebreaker. That's one of them.
Right,
if you had a superpower, what would it be? And people will say, I wish I could play the piano or the guitar.
Yeah.
How are you doing with that? Have you got one? No. okay, so you don't really
You don't really want to, yeah.
You don't really want to do it. It's just something that it sounds like a nice idea.
Yeah, somebody we knew we was quite close to a couple of years ago kept on insisting that they wanted to play guitar.
Right.
And I remember you shutting him down in one sentence. Have you bought your guitar yet?
Well, that's as we know, we can both be quite direct. And I think the value of healthy for me is probably one that's become bigger. Because now it doesn't just mean eating healthy; it means going to CrossFit, which you and I both do, of course. But it's about mental health. It's about emotional health. It's a much bigger factor for my life than it ever has been before. So when we respond to something negatively, it's because a value has been hit. So, for example, if we see somebody being treated unfairly, that's hitting on that value of equivalency or respect, and that's how we respond to it.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing before we end?
Absolutely. We aren't ending yet, but carry on.
One of the most important values for me is we've discussed this many times, is litter. People that litter.
So what is that value then? Litter isn't the value, is it?
No, I mean people that litter.
Right, but what value is it?
If you're in their company or you see it as you're driving along, someone is eating a McDonald's or something, and out the window go the wrappers, and they quite often end up in our front garden. I would if I became president of Canada tomorrow, I would have a 10-year sentence for people that litter.
You put them on a chain gang.
Especially there at Port Maitland Road. No, I suppose the value is just keep the place tidy. If everyone did their bit, and
is that not about respect though?
It is respect, I suppose, yeah.
I think respect is, well, that's what it sounds like to me.
I sound like a real model citizen, don't I?
You are.
Vote for me.
But
in the upcoming election.
But that's actually another thing that we talk about, being a good corporate citizen. We talked about this on the pilot one, is you always take your supermarket trolley back. But there's also the one about letting people out in traffic, things like that. And if you're driving, try not to make other people on the road have to stop what they're doing in order to accommodate you.
Yeah, I do that more than you,
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
This is true. Which actually leads me on to another question. This is not really values, but it's something that you and I differ on, and it's how we do things. We've got a very different approach to how we do things. So this is not really a value, but what's interesting about it is the first time it showed up was when you'd come over to my place in Canada, and I was packing it up because getting ready to come back to the UK with you. And of course, your background being in moving, you could talk in a moment about how you prefer to do these things. But for me, I do things at a million miles an hour, and nothing is in a straight line. So I've got a pile over here and a pile over there and a pile over here, and I'm going through it all. Just talk through about your reaction to that.
Well, it goes back to having a plan. You have to have a plan. So you attack the task with a plan. So you said to me, I'm going to take some stuff to England, and I'm going to take some stuff to the storage, and I'm going to take some stuff to the dump. So I'm expecting 3 piles. And I said, okay, you crack on. I'll go up the road and have a couple of beers, and I'll come back. When I came back, there was about 23 piles. And I said, I thought you was only making 3 piles. And you said, well, I'm not sure if that's dump or store yet. So it's in the between the dump and store. And I might need this in England because it rains a lot in England. So I might need, and I'm like, wow. All of a sudden we've gone from an easy task for me to something that was quite challenging.
And I think that has been a hallmark of us ever since, is methodology. It's how we do things. You have a very organised approach to how you do things, and things.
When I buy something from IKEA, you count the screws, and you count all the dowels, and you count everything. And if it says you've got to have 36 of this type screw, you make sure you've got 36. If it says 18 of these, 24 of these, I count them all out first.
I know you do it.
Yep, and you don't. You just rip into the box.
Yeah.
I think that bit goes there.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. It's also, if we go shopping, it's one reason I don't come shopping with you. You do all the shopping, because if ever I pick something off a shelf, you get it back out the basket, look at it, and put it back and pick a different one.
Yeah, dates are very important. When you're buying produce, dates are very important. Meats, produce, stuff like that.
So I think that's probably our biggest difference. I think we've discussed many times, we do share very similar values, especially around honesty and integrity, those kinds of things. Neither of us is a fan of people who lie, cheat or steal. And it's very important. So going back to the question I asked you, which was, do you think that part of the reason that sometimes you don't connect with people is purely down to their values, or is it more about you haven't got much in common with them?
I think once you get to know somebody quite well and you spent some time with them, you start to realise their values maybe don't match up to your own. I mean, in some cases they have better values, but
different values,
and you can always take a step back and accept that the friendship might not last that long. Go and look for some new friends, maybe, and life's too short to be around people with not good values. Well, I was going to swear then, but I remembered where I was.
Yeah, not good values according to us, and I think most things can be worked around because both of us are non-religious. Both of us have got friends who are religious. We have talked about those topics, but we don't let them get in the way of a friendship, because there's more to it than that.
We hope so.
Yeah, one person isn't just one element. There is more to them. So if you can park that, right? So from them, their spirituality is obviously a very strong value. It isn't one for us, but everything else aligns. So that's okay. But it's when something, in my experience, comes and smashes into a value of yours. I'll give you an example, actually. I just thought of this. A girl I used to work with many, many years ago. I actually got her a job at the company I was working for. I validated her, said gave her a reference. She came, she was there for 2 weeks. Then she went on honeymoon for 2 weeks. And then she came back for 2 weeks. And then she handed in her notice and went to another job.
Oh, wow.
Now, she hadn't told me that she was using the fact that she was working at the company I was at as a stopgap. She didn't tell me that. But then even worse was when she got to a new place, she started
nicking your clients.
Well, not the clients, the workers.
Right. Okay.
So to me, that was that was a massive no-no. And I think about that value that it hits on. It's about honesty. She had been completely dishonest with me. Anyway, we're running long here, so I'm going to, our brutally honest takeaway of the week about values. Here's mine, and I'll ask you yours. So values are the signposts for what's important to you at your core. Knowing them can help you make informed decisions about your life, who's in it, your job, and everything. You don't typically react to situations, you react to what the situations mean to you. Mm-hmm. What about you, Peter?
Very cryptic, that. Me, I'll just keep it simple. If you with people that haven't got the same values, move on, get some new friends.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening. If you want a copy of the values exercise or any more info, my website is beabetteryou.ca. Go to the link that says podcast. And this week's podcast has been thoughtfully produced by the Isle of Sound. Thank you and good night.
Thank you and good night.